couple minutes after 11. We have a pretty full agenda today, so we want to give everybody enough time. I think Ms. Gray Jackson still may join us. Got a message from her I missed, so I'm not sure what her status is, but I'm sure she'll be here soon. Before we start, I'd like to go around with introductions so everybody knows who's in the room, and if you're here with a certain organization, please let us know. And if we could start with our friends from the CAP team.
Officer Mark Karstetter with the APD CAP team. Apologize for my non-uniform appearance.
Hamza Jones with the CAP team.
Amy DeBosque, Anchorage Assembly.
Bill Evans, Anchorage Assembly.
Pete Peterson, Anchorage Assembly.
Amanda Blizzard, Anchorage Clerk's Office.
Sir? Those are your, yeah.
Yep, Ray Faust, Public Safety Commission.
Sharon Schmar, also with the Public Safety Department.
Rosalie Manuel, Aquila.
Daniel Garcia, Beans Cafe.
Stacy Baker Pelessier, Beans Cafe.
Lisa Sauter, Beans Cafe.
Heidi Heinrich, Lucky Wishbone, and Fairview Business Association.
Christopher Constant with Fairview Community Council and also with Aquila.
We're with Homer Family.
Sir.
Thomas Gabriel, Homer Bond.
Kirsten Swan with Mountain Post.
Warren Jones, Covenant Church, AFAC.
Janet Jones, Covenant Church, APAC.
Tom Ruggles, Anchorage Gospel Rest Mission.
O.C. Madden, Brown Jug.
Jim Pignola, Anchorage Fire.
John Stowski, Anchorage Fire Department.
Belinda Freeman, the Muni Health Department.
Corey Evans, Anchorage Downtown Partnership, Security Director.
Hi, Alicia Towns, Beta, I'm a program officer at Rockford Foundation.
Julie Helby, intern with the Department of Health and Human Services, Senior Services, and Disabilities.
Jerry Jenkins, Anchorage Communal Health Services.
Oh, we got a lot more people back there than I realized.
Keeps going.
Thank you all for attending. First of all, just for those who haven't previously been at our meetings, what we're doing, the process we're going through right now is to have a series of presenters. We try to get 3 or 4 at each one of these meetings to give the committee a better understanding of the various aspects and overlapping areas that the issue of the chronic inebriate and homeless has, so that the Assembly can take a more informed action when the time comes. We have about 4 main presentations involving a number of different people today. We have the CAP team, Mr. Jenkins from Anchorage Community Mental Health Services. We have Daniel Garcia from Beans Cafe, and we have a presentation from a number of individuals who from Homeward Bound. We try to mix up the types of presentations we have. You'll see today that we have, the CAP team, the police, the officers, and a number of the people that will be talking are people that have been homeless for extended periods of time, to tell us their personal story about what worked for them and perhaps what didn't work for them. So with that, I guess Lieutenant Gilliam's not here yet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if Mr. Jenkins, Jerry, is he available to go first?
He's getting up.
Okay. He's hiding in the back there.
No, I was charging.
If you could, oh, okay. We also, we will be having pizza delivered. Since we're going to plow through the typical lunch hour, there'll be pizza for everybody in our effort to make this the committee meeting that everybody wants to attend.
Pizza is no life at all.
That's right.
I vote for you to be chair of every committee.
That's it. That's the goal. Just bribe everybody with pizza.
You're going to have pizza without beer?
Pizza and coffee, I guess.
Yeah, we're roughing it though.
Legislation's usually better sober. Maybe.
We'll see.
I was just thinking.
It depends on the bill.
Right.
Technology's great when you're already.
No, I appreciate. We kind of threw you a curve by having you go first, so take your time. And also, while the committee may be asking questions of the speaker during the presentation, if there is time, we will certainly try to get your questions or comments. I will try to reserve some time at the end of the program too for any general comments anybody wants to make, but it's all kind of contingent on us getting everything in before 1 o'clock.
You know that Jerry got the message on the bell.
I'm Jerry Jenkins. I'm the CEO of Anchorage Community Mental Health Services and Fairbanks Community Mental Health Services. Several of you I know, good to see you. Several I don't. I'll just try to tell you a little bit about who I represent and our involvement in homelessness, chronic and e-groups, and making sure that people in Anchorage have a safe, affordable, accommodating place to live. If my technology works correctly, I have a short vignette because I want to show you what it's all about. I think it's very important to understand that regardless of the challenges we see on the street today, there are solutions and there are examples of people not being on the street. And I'll leave it with that. If my technology works correctly, I'm going to show you at least 3 examples. And if you happen to see somebody you know, apologize, but this is a product from a Master's of Social Work student who came to do an internship with us a couple of years ago. And she was impressed because she was not aware that people transition from the streets into safe, affordable, accommodating housing. And this is her product.
Sleep where you're good under a tree.
And I'm sorry for the sound, it's the loudest I can get it.
Find cardboard or anything you can cover up. Cardboard to help protect it from the ground. It wasn't real good in the rain, but better than nothing.
And that's all I had at the time was a sleeping bag. And that's what I slept in outside and on the snowbank.
I've slept anywhere from dumpsters to amazing piles to anywhere I could just try to stay warm. And it's not like I was proud of the fact of anything like that. It's just I did what I could do.
It's always a fantastic day at Anchorage Community Mental Health when somebody receives housing. It's really always a joyous occasion, and generally you build immediate rapport and trust with that client because they're just so happy and thankful to receive housing. And just that is really the start. The beginning of recovery is the day that somebody moves in. The Housing First model really believes that people need a stable place and a home to live in order to promote their recovery. So, and in order to start that recovery, you need to have a home, and so hence Housing First. So we place people in housing unconditionally, and then we wrap intensive supportive services around them to start their recovery and to make them successful in housing. We are looking for the most vulnerable homeless people. So we're looking for the people who have serious mental illness, more often than not co-occurring disorders, substance abuse and mental health, and who have been on the street a very long time, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we're looking for those type of clients in our housing programs because those are the type of clients that really need the most support in our community and need this type of intensive services.
This is where I live, and it's great. They got apartment buildings upstairs, and they got elevator on here, laundry room, upstairs and downstairs. So it's very convenient for everyone that lives here. I feel great, excited, ecstatic, and I'm happy. I'm more than happy. I can't be no more happier than what I am. I'm very grateful. And I'm learning to live like I'm supposed to. I love myself. I didn't love myself before. I was out in the streets and things for 16 years. All I had at the time was a sleeping bag. And that's what I slept in outside and on the snowbank. But I was just lucky it didn't freeze to death, though. And downtown used to be just white tent city. That's how I learned to grow. It was tough times back then. Some did get away from doing all this stuff, some didn't. I was like seeing things, and it was scary. So I came back up here and turned myself into the people here at Alaska Mental Health. And I came back, I was really ill. But between the doctors, Alaska Mental Health, and the churches and stuff, they helped me out very, very much. Miracles always happen. I love my Lord higher power because He's the one who brought me too out of a lot of agony and suffering. I love going to church. They come pick me up every Sunday at 11 o'clock. I just like being there for people. I like people. So, I'm loving my life. Either way it goes, I'm happy. I'm good. I'm loving what I can do for myself and things because of what's going on in my life. And I love it and I ain't going nowhere. This is my home now. Yes, I'm very proud of my place. I love it. I ain't moving. They ain't gonna get me out of here. So, yeah, I'm grateful.
Many people get the medication they need, get the therapy they need, get their primary care straightened out, and really start towards a life of recovery. We're trying to use our housing and homelessness services in the best way we can to serve the community. Housing First does save the community a tremendous amount of money. Housing First with the supportive services is a very cost-effective mechanism for serving people, and it's also very, very effective. 80% of people that we put into housing retain their housing for a year or more. Being homeless in Alaska is dangerous just because of the severe weather conditions. People end up with limbs amputated. Many people get immersion foot from their feet being wet, and a whole host of other frostbite and cold weather-related injuries that really impact people's primary care and eventually their entire lives.
I'm homeless right now. It's just so cold out there. I can't do another winter. I'm so happy to be in a place again. Feel a joy. Family can visit. Son stops by once or twice a week. It's all coming around. You're not easy out there by yourself. By this time, this far into the winter, I'll probably be dead. Frozen to death or beaten to death. Together, almost 4 to 5 years. Yeah, it's just really stressful and depressing. It's just night by night. You never know what's going to happen. Try to stay warm. You a dead winter. It's very, very hard, even if you have a heater, to stay warm. Lost some toes and stuff over that. I made a mistake and stayed out too long. I had to go to the bathroom and went to sleep. My feet were burning, so I stuck them out underneath the sleeping bags and went to sleep. I woke up one morning, they were frozen. They turned all charcoal black. It's the worst pain I've ever felt. Worse than the stab wound or worse than being shot. It was 2 months in the last operation for the first time. And the morphine doesn't cut the pain. It took me a year when I was drinking and talking. Just glad they didn't cut them off. Second time I didn't know how much I was going to lose on that one. Pretty fortunate, but I still can walk. It's hard, but I can walk. I survived. This was with some help from everybody, especially from Anchorage Community Mental Health. They helped me 100%. They literally walked in and asked the desk person if I could speak to a counselor or somebody about getting some help. And so I would met my counselor. She was very helpful and understood what my problem was and did the initial intake. Realized I need some help and cared enough to take care of it. So life is changing for me, for the better. Good things do happen, and there's good people.
Anchorage Community Mental Health Services believes that everybody deserves a home. Particularly people with disabilities in our community deserve to have a safe and warm place to live. And we also believe that recovery can't begin without a stable home for people. I believe the Housing First model works because people that are homeless want a home more than anything else. If you ask somebody that was homeless, what do they want? And they want a safe, decent, warm place to go that they can call their own. And I think when you work where people are at and what they want, then you can keep moving forward with the person to address all of the other issues that they need to promote their recovery.
So when I walked in here, knowing that I had got the keys, I did a little dance like this. Oh yeah, I did dance.
Sorry about the sound, but I wanted to start there. These were real people who may have been customers of APD at some time because of the services they provide, as well as the fire department, because I know when there's a person down, all of you have to come. As well as some of the other providers that are in here. Dr. Shamard may say, well, they were also in our neighborhood at one time, then from Fairview. I'll move to more prepared comments at this time. Hopefully the sound will be better. But I understand my mission today is talk about the homeless outreach and housing services that Anchorage Community Mental Health Services does in the community. So I'll talk about a little bit who we are, our experience in housing, and possible solutions that we've seen from our perspective. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. I will say in those 40 years, since at least 1976, we've been providing housing and outreach services to people that are homeless in the streets of Anchorage, Alaska. So we've got a little bit of track record here, as do many of my colleagues that are here. We're a private nonprofit. We do consumer-driven behavioral health care. That's mental illness, substance abuse, You also hear that we do some Alzheimer's work as well. Our vision is wellness for everyone. People don't come to us to stay sick. They come to us to get better. And it's our job to help provide some of the tools to help them do that. We promote recovery, which is people getting better. For kids, we want them to be in school. We want them to be in a stable life situation. For adults, we want them to have a safe, affordable, accommodating place to live and be engaged in meaningful activity. The most meaningful activity for an adult is work. So that's what we're trying to help people do. Wellness, they have good health, because none of us like being ill. And we do that by providing consumer-driven behavioral health care. And that term's there because who do you want in charge of your health care? Yeah, me. Give me my options and let me choose. And that's what we try to do to the folks that we serve. We do span of life. We do womb to tomb. Generally, we have someone in the ages of 2 to 3 years of age, definitely 3, sometimes as young as 2. And because we have an Alzheimer's daycare, it's not unusual for us to have consumers or members that are up to 100, 101, 102 years of age. Last year, we served 1,900. It's a cross-section of Anchorage. It's a very diverse group. I will say one of the distinguishing characteristics are a lot of these folks are in the lower socioeconomic, and the bottom line says living situations can be tenuous. We serve exclusively severely emotionally disturbed children. We specialize in children 5 and under. When I got there 12 years ago, almost 12 years ago, we served primarily adolescents. Of the 192 kids that we served in the fourth quarter, about 150 are in that very young age group. If you want to learn more about that, ask me. Seriously mentally ill adults. Many have a co-occurring substance use disorder. And last, we do Alzheimer's related dementia because we have an Alzheimer's daycare out on Abbott. How do we get paid? Medicaid, Medicare, a lot of folks on sliding scales, they have nothing, some private insurance. And I say this to say that one of our goals is to help people obtain resources that help them be successful in the community. People without incomes, people without money have a hard time. So that's one of the things we tend to do is help network. During the last 3 months of the fiscal year that just ended, which was 30 June, we served 1,251 seriously mentally ill adults. Many of them have histories with law enforcement, with corrections, with safety center, whatever it's called today. I don't know is it sobering center? Safety center, okay. During the last quarter, we assisted over 190 people with having a place to live. One of the things we look at in part of our recoveries, what are the indicators? For the people who are in API or jail, we look at non-API and non-jail days. So if we looked at our adults last year, we had an 87% reduction in the number of people who've been admitted the year before in their API and utilization. Bridge Home, we had a significant reduction, over half, in their use of DOC and API. So we're about people being in the community and being safe in the community and not being involved, not being customers for law enforcement, Department of Corrections, Sobering Center. These are things that we monitor. And one of the reasons I point these out, because we know, as the film pointed out, the first place is people need, and I do this, people need a roof. How would your mental health be today if you didn't know where you were going to sleep tonight? If you didn't know where your stuff was? And think about that. So it's just a very basic. And kids, a little bit on our kids. There's one particular piece that applies to this group. Yes, we serve young kids, but we also serve transitional age youth. I'll come back to that in just a second. Of the kids that we served in the fourth quarter, a high percentage had complex trauma. That means 3 or more. Adverse childhood events can have 1. You get complex when you have 3 or more. The significance of that is those are the kids and the young adults who are showing up. Law enforcement, they're showing up at North Star, they're showing up at juvenile justice. We know this is where they show up, so how are we addressing that? We do a lot in the area of trauma. I won't focus on that at the moment. Experience. I went back in the history of Anchorage Community Mental Health Services in 1976. We had our first formal program to do street outreach in Anchorage and engage people with mental illness and try to help them obtain housing. In 1988, we opened down, I think, at 4th and Juneau, where we're back at the Stolt Building, a drop-in center for folks to come in and be able to obtain services, homeless folks. In 1990s, we began to add housing within our menu of services. We call it transitional housing, permanent housing, shelter plus care. These are some of the fancy terms, the technical terms that are used. Because of the financial crisis in the 80s, we actually got some property vacant that we use as part of our supported housing. In the 2000s, we added Pathways to Recovery, which started out as a chronic inebriate engagement service in Anchorage, and they now have housing resources. We had something called Bridge Home, which is Housing First, funded by the Trust for frequent flyers of API, DOC, customers of Anchorage PD, state troopers, and we focused on them to try to help to break the cycle of frequent, also Judge Rose, don't let me leave her out, and it's been very successful in helping stabilize 50 to 60 what I call high-risk, high-needs consumers within the community and break the cycle of negative indicators, jail, API, safety center, and I say this because I know these folks get involved whenever they go to the safety center. Guess what? Secret Bridge Home. House. Safe, affordable. Matter of fact, they need fewer clinical services because they have a predictable place to live. Got involved with Kenya Carlock. Was supporting the model and Melinda because we know housing is one of the secrets of helping break the cycle of homelessness. Transitional age youth, we're working with Covenant House and Alaska Youth Advocates. This is a growing population of homeless. Those youth between ages 16 and 24 that you see wandering about. Anyway, attempting to work with them. Crossover House is outreach and engagement. This is one of our service lines. It's funded by the Projects for Assistance and Transitional from Homelessness. We've had it since about 1992. I'm doing something from memory, and that's a bad thing. Since 1992, we have engaged over 6,000 chronic homeless, mentally ill folks and help move them into services and ultimately transition from the streets into housing and other supports. So we do outreach, engagement, help people get connected both to mental health, substance abuse, and primary care. That's Crossover House. A lot of the technical things that we do there, the focus is 18 and above. Primary housing status is homeless, on the streets or in shelters, or imminent risk. Just some data I'd be glad to share of those 6,000 I was talking about. This is how it breaks down as far as race, diagnoses, a large number with schizophrenia, where we found them, housing at first contact. A lot of folks were shelters, outdoor. This is the one I think is interesting. How long have they been outdoors or time homeless? Most, a good number, 6 months to a year. The second one is Pathways to Recovery. We began getting involved about a decade ago. It strictly focuses on engagement of chronic public inebriates. The secret here is case management, that a person stays with them for years, transitioning wherever they need in order to break the cycle of going to the safety center. I'm going to tell a couple of war stories here because I've personally been involved with customers of the safety center that had over 1,000 pickups, 1,000 visits. Think about how much resource was involved in making that happen. Today they're clean, sober, housed, working. Some of them had 15, 20, 25-year drinking careers. Today, they're clean and sober. So our goal there is to pursue sober living, connection with mainstream resources, including healthcare and housing. Some of these folks go to treatment, they come back, and we just tell them up front, you're going to get housed, you're going to be responsible for it, you're going to be responsible for getting a job, obtaining resources. And the thing here is, how fast do you make a change in your life? If I'm a straight inebriate here, and I've been living that way for 10 or 15 years, and Debbie Flowerdew walks up to me and says, hey, you want to get clean and sober? I'm not going to trust her. I'm not going to listen to her. After a year or two, I may begin to believe that this woman really has something to offer. And they'll call and say, I'm ready. When she gets that call, she has to be able to access detox, whatever level of treatment they need, and ultimately housing. It's about a relationship that develops over a period of time. That's the secret pathways. And it's being out there where the folks are. If it's in the sobering center, if it's in the camps, if it's hanging out at the shelter or at Beams, that's where you'll see her. I call it snagging and dragging. She's out there passing out cards. And some of you in this room have actually ridden with her, and you know how she knows everybody and everybody knows her. I took a look at some data from 2006, 2012, engaged 419 chronic inebriates. At one time, I knew the average number of stays at the safety center, but it was pretty significant. Of those, 272 completed substance abuse treatment, 174 were housed. I mean, we can track them. They're no longer on the streets of Anchorage, being customers of law enforcement, fire and safety center. 85 were employed. About a quarter of them were veterans. So we got some data, some experience dealing with chronic needs. One of the issues we have here is we can't find a good funding stream. In the years I've been involved, we've had at least 8 or 9. Everything from Department of Justice, SAMHSA, municipality, trust. And the reason I point this out is because everybody has a different goal. So if we could get some consistent funding here, we'd be able to have more consistent focus on what we're doing. So dirty little secrets, other than being trauma-informed for the homeless population, it's doing engagement, and sometimes it takes a long time, but it's being available and consistent, reaching the hand out, saying, hey, we're here to help when you're ready. Secondly is the case management, the person that goes with that person through the process. Here comes Debbie Flowerdew now, just talking about her. So third, access to treatment. Some of the folks that we deal with actually need substance abuse treatment. It is imperative they be able to hit the right levels of medical, they need medical detox, they need intense long-term treatment, they need follow-up, whatever it takes for them to get the sober skills that they need to become responsible citizens. And moving right along, access to safe, affordable, accommodating housing. And sober supports. AANA, church, friends. I'll pick on Kenny Peterson if he was here because he does a lot. There he is. In helping folks that are coming through the system. Not only Kenny Scallon, but Kenny Peterson as well. Helping folks move into the community. You notice I got that alliterated several times because we think this, whether it be mental illness or substance abuse, these are the things that people need. We do some housing. These are some of the things that we do. We have some internal stock. We do transitional housing at Safe Harbor currently. We have some funding streams. This is how we support 190 plus folks in Anchorage at any given time and all kinds of housing. I'm just giving you some examples. This one's interesting. It's for transitional age youth. The thing about transitional age youth, it's different from adults. There's some raging hormones. Okay, so special accommodations there. But again, just some of the things that we do. Who are we? We provide our span of life services for severely emotionally disturbed, seriously mentally ill, Alzheimer's-related dementia. Been doing outreach and engagement in the community a little over 35 years. And I'll sum it up by saying, everybody remember the Maslow hierarchy? What we're aware of when that bottom level is provided. Safe, affordable, accommodating housing, a roof, food, clothing, health care. Everything else can change from there, whether it be a chronic inebriate, whether it be a seriously mentally ill person. So with that, any questions?
Thank you. So
in the beginning when you said, 80% of people stay or stay in the housing for at least a year, it seems like those are the ones that are probably more likely to be successful at the first attempt. My assumption is that 20% that don't stay for the first year, do you see them back? And I'm sure the engagement doesn't stop.
That's
Can
correct.
you talk about that 20%?
Well, that's the part of the long-term case management. If they blow out, you keep that same relationship and you keep working on and looking for why did they blow out? What did we miss the first time? Can we adjust and fix it the second time?
And you see them back, I'm sure.
Yes.
So maybe the second time they were successful or the third time.
And remember what I was saying about change. Think about how hard it is for each of us to change. And we're asking people to make catastrophic or substantial changes. I won't say catastrophic in a negative way, but major changes in their life. And for those that actually do this business, not everybody has the skills to move into an apartment or a house and manage it. They've never done that before. I don't care if they're 40, 50 years of age. They've never known how. But they do know how to manage outside. And sometimes it's helping them understand and giving them the tools to live inside. I know that sounds wild for some of us, but having met some of these folks, they don't feel comfortable at first. And that's the reason they blow out. If they don't make it, continue to work with them and help find a situation where they can.
No, those 80% that are successfully stay there for a year, can you talk about those a little bit long term? I mean, are they staying there for 10 years? I'm sure the number stays lower and lower, but it sounds like some of these people may be transitioning out completely into, say,
Community.
Community on
Yes.
their own.
Yes.
So can you talk about what you see as a time span as you're transitioning? I'm sure everybody's different, but
Within our funding streams, we have transitional housing, which is up to 2 years. We're finding most folks are going within 6 months because they go on to more permanent, what we call permanent housing. If we have someone that goes to Murrayville for 6 months or a year, they're looking for an apartment or a living situation in the community. We call that permanent housing. Quite frankly, housing is housing. I think we need to get out of the terminology permanent, temporary. But it's housing. And what we find after about 6 months, they're able to find an apartment. They move. They may have subsidies from us or HFC or none at all. And it's helping them have that safe platform from which to work.
another part of your presentation, you talked about complex trauma specifically with kids.
Adults.
I'm just unfamiliar what you mean by complex trauma. I'm sure there's probably multiple facets. Maybe there's abuse, maybe there's addiction, maybe there's mental health issues. Is that what you mean?
Yes. For everybody here, excuse me for a second, but ACE, Adverse Childhood Events, ACE. Just Google ACE, Bain, whatever you do for your search engine, ACE. The study came out of Kaiser Permanente in the 80s and 90s where they evaluated 17,000 middle-class Americans and did a back look into their history, and what they found was the people with the most problems with physical health and emotional health had something in trauma, or had something in common. It was adverse childhood events. And there's a scale of like 1 to 7. Once you go past 3 traumas, and that can be sexual abuse, physical abuse, abandonment, catastrophic events like floods, fires, anything like that, there's quite a large body of work that it biologically and psychologically changes the person.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, you mentioned how many treatment beds we have. How many more would we need to be able to meet the demand? How long is the waiting list? The number obviously fluctuates, but the number we have right now obviously is inadequate. And once someone, the biggest first step I've been told is once they make a decision that they would like to quit whatever it is their addiction is. And once they decide they want to do it, then if there's no place for them to go, that, they get frustrated, and next thing you know, they're back on the street doing what they were doing before, and by the time the 6 months waiting list is, their name gets at the top, they could already be dead. So how many more do we
It's
need?
variable because on any given day, there may be capacity, and I'm going to have to defer to the experts, Ms. Nato and Ms. Flower. The question is, how many more beds do we need for like detox? Or how many more slots? How are we doing today?
We have a total of 12 in the city of close to 300,000 with 12 detox beds.
Is that enough?
Heavens no.
Debbie?
Very well double that, but the problem is there's nowhere to put them in treatment.
See, detox is just the first part. Then if they need long-term
They
treatment,
need
where
to
do we go?
step right out of detox to treatment beds, which are not available.
I work at Aquila. I've been there 22 years, almost 23 years. And when I started, we had 40 beds. And think about the population in Anchorage then. Now we have 18 beds that are funded. One of the things that happens is that when we're looking at this group that has to have residential treatment, and we're coming right out of detox, they are not really appropriate for outpatient. Plus, they have no place to live. And you're not going to do well in treatment if you have no place to live. So we have decimated residential treatment in this community for this population. We can't serve them because we don't have the resources to serve them. We can't put them in housing because we don't have housing. We have some transitional housing, but we don't put them in there until after they've gone through treatment. When I release somebody who has spent 6 months to a year in residential treatment, what's going to happen to that individual is they have no money, and so they get released to the street because I don't have any place to put them, and there are no resources. So they have one place to go, and that's back with their drinking, using buddies, because they'll take them in, and they camp someplace and use or drink. And we see recidivism because we had no support system for them. Treatment programs are not funded in a way that allows us to use what we really need, which are the case managers Jerry talks about. If I could have the Debbies follow our people around, and Debbie used to work for us, by the way. If I could have the Debbies follow people around when they get out to help them get there. But Jerry has, because mental health, although is inadequately funded, is funded far better than substance use treatment is. Jerry has housing available that we don't have. And I know Debbie takes a lot of her people out to a treatment program in the Valley that is a residential treatment program because we don't have room here.
Debbie?
Can I mention that?
Speak up.
Can I mention that the more needy clients out there are, a lot of them with physical disabilities, and the treatment centers aren't willing to take them.
It depends on what they are, but
Yeah, for the most part, they are equipped to take them. I believe the last one I had, Nugent's Ranch, said that their disabled room was taken. So they didn't have a room for such a person. So there's many out there that really want services, but they can't work in a treatment center. They aren't physically able to do that. So while everybody was sitting here this morning, I was down at Beans and
Thank you
one
for
of
being
our
there.
clients
Yeah.
just
Thank you.
fell dead. And he was a disabled man who over the years had been through pathways and went to treatment. He did well here and there, and he'd relapse and go back. And then he started, getting ill, of course. And I believe he had a stroke. He was hit by a car. So here we were, I want to go to treatment. No treatment center could handle it because of his disability.
And literally, our staff right now is standing out with his body, which is right in front of the front door of Beans Cafe, waiting for the coroner to come and pick up the body. So this problem, whatever the solution is, I just want to say, we need to find some. We aren't even in winter yet. And at Beans, we're losing one client every 2 weeks. Yeah, 3 this month.
We're gonna, next month, we're gonna try to make the focus of the presentations on the substance abuse treatment, so we get a
Lack thereof.
But go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Boswell.
So just a little clarification. At one point you said there's 12 beds, but then you made a reference to 18. How many?
We have 18 beds for treatment at Aquila House. There are 12 detox beds. They're all at the Ernie Turner Center.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
But what we may need to give you are the different players: Clethro, Aquila, Rural Cap, Nugent's, Narcotics Treatment Center. I'm sure y'all aren't seeing it here.
Chris, real
Yeah,
quick.
A quick note that in Fairbanks, they actually have 25 detox beds. And so as a matter of perspective in their population, they have double our beds.
Quick question for you, Mr. Jennings, before we let you go. As far as the municipality goes, I mean, our goal here is to try to find solutions to assist in this problem, to reduce this problem, and they're going to be solutions that the municipality can implement. What would you say, standing here, would be the best thing the municipality can do to help better this situation?
I'm going to come up with a couple, and I'm going to look at Dr. Schmart, because back in 2007, 2008, there was a Fairview study group that included, at that time, Chief Mute. I can't remember who was represented, the fire department, Commissioner Schmidt from Department of Corrections, because the first assumption was the chronic inebriate issues and homeless issues in Fairview was a law enforcement issue. Then it was a corrections issue. And the bottom line was it's a health and social services issue. That when you have adequate resources to address homelessness, addictions, that you can make a dent in that population. That was one. The other one's housing. We need more safe, affordable, accommodating housing in Anchorage. And then it helps us link and get people off the streets in a safe environment.
And are you referring just to housing in general or supportive housing?
All of the above. I mean, I don't want to talk about staff. I have staff that are challenged to find safe, or not safe, but affordable housing today. Double Carlin, triple Carlin. Kenny?
Quadruple.
Double, triple.
What's the
Size.
size? We have 46.
Yeah, but do we need to double it, triple it?
Oh, easily.
Okay.
We just took over this, we're taking over the safe harbor programs, and they're full and we need more. There's a waiting list on both programs.
Will Mr. Jenkins be available for questions later on?
Can be.
I'm Heidi Heinrich. I'm the president of the Fairview Business Association. I heard you say many, many times that coordinated case management is absolutely imperative in this. So you support our idea of the funding and to keep it intact, to do the job all the way through?
Well, go back to Paul and ask Paul if he ever rode with Debbie. Because she took him through, she took him around and showed him the process and the results. It's about a long-term relationship.
We just need folks that have a little bit of say to help us keep that for what it was intended rather than having it broken up into pieces. And it's good to hear you say that.
We're going to have to end you at that. I appreciate you coming and providing the information. We may have follow-up questions for you down the road. And before we get to our next presenter, is going to be the CAP team. Their pizza is here, as promised, so if we can just take 5 minutes right now for everybody to help themselves and try to get back to your seats as quickly as possible, we can continue. Thank you.
How are you?
We probably won't need anything.
No,
Appreciate you staying in the loop.
helping the people who are going to do the presentation.
I'll take full step.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were going to do it, so I just started writing notes in case I had to.
Oh, no. If they need somebody representing the real pattern,
Greg wanted me to come to the meeting. Right?
That's nice. Okay.
Possibly.
25 G's.
So glad to see you.
He was
Right? Are they up for it?
Thank you, folks.
Yeah, happy.
Thank you very much.
You gonna eat all that?
Is really getting out there.
I miss it. Exactly.
So I want to.
It's a good day.
All right, how are you? I'm doing well.
Spice rack. Farm Explorer there.
I'm agreeing that they need to see that as well. Do you have a video system?
Well, see, that's it. When we figure out, okay, well, this used to work, but now this got changed. My name's Loretta Mason. Now it's
Actually, FaceTime over email at one
So you all have connected?
I think so on a tier 1, it'll have been a few years.
Actually, yeah, and identifying the things you want to get some legislation on real website.
Yeah, we're just.
I heard you guys. I have.
We're behind you, it's too much.
Related to land use and all this kind of things. I'm just coming up here. The evidence.
Hey, folks, hopefully you've had time to get your pizza. We need to get started again. Feel free to help yourselves to the pizza. You can just do it quietly while we're in the presentation, that's fine. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Lieutenant Gilliam and the CAP team to this presentation.
Well, Mr. Chair, just thank you and Mr. Peterson. Thank you very much. I noticed that Elby's not here. I hope everything is okay with her. Thank you for inviting us this morning to talk about a very critical issue that the Anchorage Police Department and other public safety issues have. The first thing I wanted to say is the Anchorage Police Department is not heartless. We understand these people have challenges. I'm going to be introducing to you shortly.
Good. Folks, shh. If you have a conversation, if you need to do it, stay outside, please.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to be introducing to you here in a moment the person up here. This is Acting Sergeant Mark Karstetter. Forget the way he looks. He's working an assignment, so and this is Senior Patrol Officer Sally Jones. These are two of our more experienced officers in our CAP team. I'm sure you've probably heard about the Anchorage Police community. There it is called the CAP team is Community Action Policing Team. This is a team that started in 2007. You heard Mr. Jenkins reference a workshop with Fairview back in 2008. It was this team that started working with them, and they have been continuing to work with them since then. I was actually part of those workshop groups back then, so I remember well Mr. Floyd's reports that he did in 2006 and brought through. I did speak with Ms. Freeman earlier or later last night and was able to get some statistics from 2013. It doesn't surprise many of us that we have some very similar trends even through that area. First of all, the chronic inebriates and homeless is a very complex social problem. It will not be solved by law enforcement. We can't do it alone. It will require the cooperation of, places like the mental health system. There are other charities, other non-governmental organizations. We understand that this is a very complex problem, and that's why we use the CAP team to do this. Most policing done in our department is what we call the traditional model, which means you've got a problem, you call us, we'll send an officer there, we'll look at it. If there's a crime committed, we'll arrest the individual that needs to be arrested, and then we're going to write the report, there will be a prosecution, and then we're on to the next call. That's the traditional model. Well, the CAP team is removed from that. They work in a division called the Crime Suppression Division. I'm currently the acting captain for that division, and what we do in this division is we take a problem-solving approach. We work with the community. In fact, these officers and the other CAP team members are frequent visitors to the various community councils that are experiencing significant problems in their area. So they use a problem-solving methodology on what are the issues, what do we have to deal with. And the chronic inebriates is, when we went to the 2008 workshops, we thought we knew. We're the professionals. We thought we knew what the problems were in the community. When we started using the problem-solving approach, then we heard from the community itself. We realized this is important. We need to hear what the people are seeing on the street. I clearly remember a young lady telling me that, I can't use the local park next to my complex because I first have to walk out, pick up the condoms and needles before I let my children go and play in a park next door. By the same token, I have to get them in a certain time because then we have to hear the drive-by shootings. So the significant public safety issues, these are the things that fall on our step. Then we started hearing about the chronic inebriates, the homeless, which we later learned, well, some of these aren't really homeless. These are individuals that are illegally camping and doing some of this behavior there. In fact, in one section, I think, when you were dealing near Chester Creek, more than a fourth of these individuals actually had residences here in town, but they were frequent these parks because they could party, they could do what they wanted, and it was a significant public safety issue for the people that wanted to visit those areas. So we understand that there are organizations, and we applaud those, Catholic Social Services, Brother Francis Beans, heck of a mission. I understand it and appreciate what you do, but there is a significant public safety issue that surround this problem. And that's what we have to deal with. It's the community, it's the business owners, the neighbors that come to us and say, hey, I can't live my life because of this problem. What can you do? And hence, this is where the CAP team comes into play. Now, you're gonna hear them give you a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation, and it'll be just a little bit of an overview about what they are seeing inside there. The CAP team is very creative on how they approach a problem because arrest may not be the right thing to do. We go in, we look at it, and I'll give you an example. We had a young lady that was working a summertime program. She rented a park here in town. She says, I want to be able to do this, but I can't because the drunks are fighting, they're urinating, they're even having sex in there. This is where kids are going to be playing volleyball all summer long. So the CAP team works a program, they come up and they go, okay, here's what we're going to do. So they look at the circumstances, the surrounding behavior, and then they try to tailor that response to that issue. Now, you look at the success of this team, you would think there's 50 officers assigned to it. We have 6, and they do this citywide. And so they're dealing with the chronic inebriates, they're dealing with the illegal campers, they're dealing with significant other problems, and are constantly. This past summer, because of the downtown bar problems, they were directed to go and deal with that. I mean, we were having drive-by shootings, we've had homicides in the area. So this is our problem-solving unit, and this is what we have. So right now, I'm going to ask Acting Sergeant Karstetter if he would begin the PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll open it up for questions after that. Thank you.
Again, I'm Officer Mark Karstetter. For the purpose of my last name, feel free to address me as Mark. I just tell you a little bit about myself. I pretty much a lifelong Alaska resident here in Anchorage. I served 22 years in the Alaska Air National Guard, and I've currently been on with the Anchorage Police Department almost 13 years. 6 of those have been under the tutelage of Lieutenant Gillum. I can tell you that 90% of the things that I deal with on a daily basis all have roots in alcohol and drugs. From the guy down on the sidewalk to the most violent, heinous crimes. Go ahead. This is going to be just a serious snippet of some of the things that we deal with. Now, these are different sections of town. Some of them you might recognize, some of them you might not. We have a very, very large populace of chronic inebriates or / homeless illegal campers. I can tell you that these are the stats that were driven from ASP, or the Safety Patrol, in their 2013 survey. And you're looking at a 17% increase from 2009 to 2013, and it's only going to get worse until we figure out what to do with it. And these are how we're having contact with the chronic inebriates. ASP van has gone out to over 16,000 calls for service with 14,776 people that they actually transport to ASP for sleep off. APD is dealing with another 7,000 plus people. And it was mentioned earlier, we'll get a man down call. Not only does it tie up APD, it ties up AFD as well, because they'll send a medic rig, and that rig is now attached to that call and not able to answer a more pressing issue. And 9 times out of 10, it's Larry who's had a little bit too much to drink and needs to be taken to sleep off. This I found extremely disturbing. 50% of your chronic inebriates are what we call frequent flyers, the people that use ASP services. Over 50% of them are the same people. The top 50 clients, that's the guys that spend the most time there, 23% of all intakes. Top 200, you add that up, that's going to be over 50%. The top 200, 28%. This gives you a kind of an idea of what we're dealing with the amount of consumption. Everybody knows that legal alcohol limit as far as driving is 0.08. And I can tell you at a 0.08, it's pretty hard to stay vertical. These guys are walking in, and this is the average of all clients, is at 0.218. When I went through the academy, they basically told us that at 0.3, you're almost dead. And these guys are reaching very close to that. A lot of people ask us about the parks. Lieutenant Gillum made a mention of the nice lady that was running the volleyball camp. How we deal with the illegal acts inside the parks, obviously if it's a criminal act, they get arrested, cited and released, or carted off to jail. We have what they call prohibited acts, drinking in public, well, drinking in the park, sex in the park, defecation, urination. Those individuals will get a civil citation, and then we will trespass them from that city park, that particular park, for a year. Okay, we call it a one-up. You can't just see somebody passed out in the park and trespass them. They have to actually be in the act of committing an infraction or a crime. Last year, I looked worse than this. I actually would go to the parks and observe people in their actions, and then I'd call uniformed officers to come in and take care of what was going on. And that's, again, the CAP team is, we joke about being the problem of the day unit, because we spend a day here and a day there. We've got so many irons in the fire, but 90% of them all circle right around the alcohol issues. Now, the illegal camping. These are some of our forms that we're actually currently using. We post 72 hours on private property issues, and at the end of the 72 hours, if we're going to make an arrest for a trespass, at that point we have to take and claim all their equipment and store it. And it's a biohazard issue. It's a safety issue. We also have a 15-day notice. Now, these people have rights, just like everybody else does. That's their home. We can't just kick them out on the street. So after 15 days, at the end of 15 days, if we post them a 15-day trespass notice, at that point we can take the tent. We don't have to store it anymore. But when we do make contact with people inside the camps, we are doing what they call the HEART form. And don't ask me what the acronym HEART stands for. I apologize for that. But it is to try to get people services. We fax it to DHHS, and they're supposed to try to contact these people. We take phone numbers or last known mailboxes, addresses, those types of things. But we try to get them into housing. And part of the questionnaire is, would you like to get into dry housing? Would you like to get into damp housing or wet housing? Would you like a job, assistance in job training along those lines? Because we want to try to get these people off the street.
And just real quick, if they're not there, if the camp is there but they're gone, it's unoccupied, we do complete this form and say this camp is at this location for DHHS to get that information.
Do they get the 15 first and then the 72?
A lot of times what we'll do is we'll do the 72 first, because if they can, it's 72 hours. Some people will actually pick up and move. And I can tell you,
15, a lot don't really realize how many, 15
15 days is an exorbitant amount of time.
Right.
But what you'll see happen is we will post a 72 hour, and that tent will pick up from Chester Creek and go to 13th and Carla.
What determines what kind of notice they receive?
It's a lot of times it's private property issues, but we try to give them the 72 hour first, because we want, for a better word, instant gratification. We want somebody to do what we want them to do now, because a lot of times the people that are complaining are citizens. This is behind my apartment complex. These guys are raising heck all night long, and we want them out of here. So as officers, we have certain parameters we have to go through because we were sued by the Civil Liberties Union in 2010. So we came up with an agreement, and they signed off on this. This is how we can move these people around. This kind of basic brief is we respond to complaints from citizens, businesses, sometimes higher ups in this building. And we will go and we will try to make contact with those campers. A lot of times their tents are empty. They've gone to the street corner or wherever else. But we do our due diligence in trying to contact these people and push them in the right direction. And an interesting caveat to that is we've been doing this program since 2011, all summer and all winter. And especially the folks down at Brother Francis, you see a huge influx of people. Those are people that we have got out of the backcountry to try to get to services. And good or bad, you're the point of contact. This is just kind of a representation. We come into tents at every different. I've seen Cabela's tents. I've seen Wilderness Edge, Glacier tents. The picture in the middle was taken about 3 weeks ago in East Anchorage, where the gentleman had bought this plastic shed and is living in it since he's moved. But they come in all different shapes and sizes. The problem that we have a lot to do with camping, I don't know if you guys remember the fire, I think it was 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, Tudor Elmore. They burned up woods back in there. That was a homeless campfire. So they're going in and they're taking the trees down, they're defecating, urinating, littering, open burning. And we will go to camps and we'll find like the bottom picture. Camp's gone, but all their stuff's still there. So now I have to call Parks and Recs or the private person that owns the property and say, look, you can now dispose of all this stuff. It's a huge cost. One of my favorite pictures is the upper right picture. That's Officer Jones standing there in the forefront. That gentleman at Chester Creek had built a fortress out of baling wire and pallets and cardboard, and it nearly took us, 3 hours to dismantle it. And that's the pile left over after we dismantled it. Panhandling, another issue, everybody's seen it. You might know some of these people. Panhandling is a real issue. They have some rights. They can sit on the edge of the sidewalk with a sign. They're not supposed to make contact. They're not supposed to ask for money. They're not supposed to approach their clients. If they do, then they're aggressive panhandling. It could be handled criminally or civilly. But part of the problem is most of these folks are trying to get their next bottle. They get their money, and send somebody to the store, and then they sit in public and drink, and I get complaints. And then they get drunk and they fall into traffic, and somebody's gonna get killed by a car. Bottom line. It's a huge part of our day.
And not to mention the littering, because they do leave a lot of human waste.
Now, you can see it at every bus stop, the tops, the little aerator things you get in the bottle of booze, that's the first thing that goes.
One more thing on the panhandling. Some of these individuals have shared with us that they can get anywhere from $50 to $150 a day in panhandling. So that's a lot of discretionary funds for them. In fact, more than some of us may have that kind of money that every day they get. We want to encourage our citizens not to do that. Don't support that because it doesn't help at all. We want our citizens to donate to the charities or other organizations that will actually help individuals that want to transition.
And as he said, some of these people make lots of money. I've had contact with a sweet little old lady that likes to hang out downtown, and she has a house. She doesn't need the money. She does it just to visit with people. These are some of the Title IV issues we deal with. Title IV is a state statute on sales of alcohol, what bars can do, can't do, hours of operation, everything to do with legal sales of alcohol is under Title IV. We have a huge problem in this community with overservice, or there's 100% ID check, right? Well, I can tell you right now, it doesn't get checked. Or people make straw purchases. I'm too drunk to go in, so I'll send Sally in to go buy my booze. We watch it every day. Over services in the nightclubs and bars downtown. I'll spare you the little video that unless you absolutely want to watch it. But I brought about a minute, 30-second video of some of the stuff we did downtown. Like Lieutenant Gillen said, downtown is off the hook as far as issues on Friday, Saturday nights, and it's all contributes to overservice. Fights, stabbings, rapes, DUIs. So we went down and tried to enforce that this last summer. The summer prior to that and the winter prior to that, we actually went in undercover with body cams and started writing citations for overservice. We'd sit and observe and watch and watch the mannerism of the person not just sitting on the bar stool that falls off 3 times. You can't tell me that you don't know he's drunk, but you're still serving him beer. So it's an easy.
One of the videos, the bartender woke the guy up off the counter and served.
And said, do you want another one?
Absolutely. We went in, cited both the server and the client, who actually got in his car and tried to leave, so he got a DUI on top of it. But we had the receipt, date, timestamp, plus video of this encounter.
And this is really hard too. While I was patrolling, this is just recently, about 2 weeks ago, for illegal camps. I'm driving around. I'm by the Ingrid house. I'm going through the alleyway. I see a guy take a step and then drop. I made contact with him. He's obviously intoxicated. I noticed he has his stump, no hand, 4 fingers missing, just a thumb. He's conscious breathing. Obviously, this is an intoxicated gentleman. I call CSP and I wait. His brother comes running, has 2 bottles in his hand. Go, that's my brother. He came from a village to Anchorage because he fell asleep because he had a drinking problem and did the surgery to remove his appendages. So that's how bad the addiction to alcohol is. We, as officers, we do is just, CSP, there's resources that are out there that we don't have, and I'm not the only one. With other officers have complained, who do we refer these people to? And yes, they want to get help. Do they not want to get help? We don't know, but that's a step. We run into the 50% that CSP runs into. We run into them in camps, passed out with CSP. What do? We're criminal, We think outside the box, so we can say, oh, we can, talk to whom we're bound, we can do this. We have more time than the average patrol officer. There's got to be something in place to say, if you run into this person, and one of the things that police officers do, oh yeah, I know Harry, oh, I know whatever. They know them by name. That's how much police contact they have. And it's a cycle. CSP, out, drink. CSP, out and drink. Shelter, they get eat things. It's just a cycle. We need to figure out something. And obviously, it is a community issue, not just a police issue. We see this all the time. And we get frustrated. What can we do?
I'll let Lieutenant Gillum expound upon our greatness. I'm just kidding. But we've actually had some success, like she said, thinking out of the box. We had a homeless individual who wasn't an inebriate, but he was from Kenya, I think.
Kenya.
Very volatile. The big pile of all the lumber, that's his place. We run into him 2 or 3 times since then. Very volatile individual. Just very, because he wanted help, wasn't getting it, he was frustrated. Once we broke through that, 2 of our officers went and took him to Value Village, got him some new clothes, made contact with the embassy, actually got him a flight to Georgia. He's called, he's happy as a clam now, he's got a job. So the team has to think outside the box. We've actually got people into housing. It's hard to get people into housing because A, they have to want it, just like you said. And a lot of people I make contact with, quite frankly, they don't want it. They are very happy living in a tent and drinking. That's all they want to do. Whether that's a mental illness or an addiction issue. But I tell my wife this all the time. An addicted personality, somebody that's addicted to alcohol or drugs, you cannot force them, no matter how hard you beat them over the head, to go get treatment until they finally break and say, today is the day I'm going to go get help.
We do run into missing adults. They do have an assisted living home and they're like, I don't want to go there. I don't like the way they treat me. I don't like the rules.
I can't drink there.
Exactly. So they do get assisted living and then decide that's not for them.
I've heard the suggestion of having a designated camp area where there's medical facilities available, restrooms available, all of that stuff. What do you think that would work?
I'm going to forward that to these folks over here. I can tell you that in today's society, with the lawsuit society that we have, who's going to take liability for that one? Okay,
Folks,
it's got its
please
merit.
Don't just throw out questions if you could. Okay. As a matter of fact, if you could, we have about 7 minutes left.
We're almost done here, as a matter of fact. These are just more of our frequent flyers. Some of you will probably know. This is kind of our tactics and strategy. CPTED, Sharon knows all about this. Crime prevention through environmental design. It's thinking outside the box. You'll see that a lot of the trees get trimmed up at 6-foot levels just to keep people from sleeping underneath them. So not everything's about arrests. We deal with 880, and that's a project is for nuisance residents or nuisance businesses. Okay? It's a financial leverage that we have to get them to change their behaviors. We deal with government agencies, both government and non-government agencies, charities, community organizations. We deal with community councils. Neighborhood Crime Watch is part of our section, and we deal with the Neighborhood Crime Watch people all the time. I'm going to turn it over to the boss, but feel free to.
Mr. Chair, thank you for your time. If you have any questions,
Sure, Mr. Lebowski has questions.
I do, but I have so many, I don't know where to start.
We have actually only 6 minutes left in this segment, so if you can at least be brief, that would be great. If you, or we can take more time later.
Yeah, I'm just gonna stew here for a minute.
Okay. Mr. Peterson?
and I'll be happy to leave my card with anybody if you want to talk to me offline.
We're definitely going to need more information from you and more follow-up with this, but it's certainly appreciate the overview to give us an idea of what you...
And it is just scratching the surface.
Right. Well, it's obviously, we can arrest our way out of this problem, we can jail our way out of this problem. So, and that's part of the reason that this committee was put together to try to get our arms around what is possible and what might have worked in the past and maybe might be working somewhere else that we could try. So it's good to get the statistics and the story on the street. So right now we're just gathering information so that we can try to come up with a plan. And so if you have any ideas that you think might help us, don't hesitate to let us know what those are.
Actually, that was what I was going to ask you. What can we do to make your job more effective?
Well, excuse me on that. It is a complex issue, and we have been approaching it in segments. You heard him mention that there's a group of people that do want homeless. In fact, the numbers of the illegal camps have significantly dropped since 2011 because we are encouraging them to at least get into the shelters where they're safer. Because these camps, and go to your question about having a camp area, when they've gotten together and there's been multiple camps, we've had sexual assaults, we've had homicides in those areas and brutal assaults. So that behavior, because it goes unchecked, and I don't know if you could ever design a facility to allow people to camp in, because literally you'd have to have a roving patrol to walk through there to protect the vulnerable segments of those individuals, or vulnerable individuals in that location. So we look at it segmented. Look at what can we affect, and that's the problem now is that while we may have 3,000 plus individuals that are picked up for chronic inebriants, we know that those top 50 to 200 are the ones that we deal with on a daily basis. So we do have to deal with them either by picking them up or calling CSP to those areas. We try to deal with the area residents, because it's very hard when someone that lives in this affected area calls and says, look, I can't live my life because of these individuals. So that comes to the competition of who is more right here. So it is complex.
At our last meeting, we had a presentations from Brother Francis and Beans Cafe, and one of the issues that kept coming up was that there's an increasingly younger, more aggressive population out there that seems to be fueled by spice. Quite frequently.
I have met with Catholic Social Services and Beans and BFS recently, as a couple of weeks ago, and we have encouraged them to put a fence in one area. What we did learn through those meetings was, and I know Mr. Oliva suffers significant of these issues, a lot of those people that are in and around that area of Beans and BFS aren't clients of that, except for Beans. They may go get the food, but they're there because they can get advice. They're there because that's their social milieu of individual people there. That's why they're congregating in it. And we come up with a new term has surfaced. Instead of illegal camping, they're just flopping, for the lack of a better word for it. They're going to lay there and wait for the next meal. And unfortunately, all the other behaviors that you've just seen here, the assaultive behaviors and other bad behaviors that you exhibit in this area, are magnified because there's so many people in that area.
And many of them, we've trespassed off our property, and they're not allowed on our property at all. But once they're on the sidewalk, we can't do anything.
But if you can get a barrier there and separate the clients from those that are not, that allows APD to focus on the real problem individuals. So right now, they're commingled.
Right, right.
Ready?
I'm ready.
To move on?
I'll do it fast.
Quick question.
So a couple things. What I'm hearing is we need to reevaluate the CAP team staffing. And would that be a fair assessment?
Well, yes. There have been PERF reports and ICP reports about how APD should transition into community policing. So the problem of it is where do we get those other individuals? Because we are so understaffed in our most basic levels. And if you ask me as the division commander for the crime suppression, yes, I would like to see the unit expanded. I would actually like to see it in a multiple team concept. But we first have to provide the very basic patrol responses. And then once we get to that level, then we can expand.
And I think one of the things I had written down was multiple team, or I had written down staffing model, because that's where my mind was going. But, one of the things we heard at our last sessions was how they know the drug dealing is going on right there at Brother Francis and Beans. And I learned about mobile alcohol unit sales or whatever. I've already forgotten the term. But that's why it seems like there's so many issues. It's just the CAP team, there's just not enough resources to focus on everything. I mean, it's kind of like this roving, okay, we're dealing with this today, we're dealing with that. So that'll be something I'd be interested in, is following up on that staffing model to see how we can leverage
They are pulled in multiple directions.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Just had an additional comment. we have a law against spice here in Alaska and in Anchorage. Unfortunately, there is no federal statute against it right now, so it is actually being shipped in via the internet. At least that's what everyone's assuming. And I did mention this fact to one of the people in our congressional delegation sometime in the last month. And they said there is a bill in Congress, but it has not passed as yet. So I encouraged him to make sure it passed as soon as possible.
Now, an interesting fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys haven't seen the effect of, generally in the city, of spice after the city changed its ordinance.
As far as in the stores, you mean?
Yeah, in the stores or in the uses of it. I do understand that specifically around Brother Francis and Beans, that there's an increased use in that, but in general
I don't
population.
have the scientific proof for my.
But just anecdotal.
I think the problem you're having with Brother Francis is the cheap high. It's cheaper than buying dope.
Yep, that's it. And that's
We're
what they
not
say.
seeing it in the stores. The stuff we're seeing in the stores is called Kratom and some other. It's the periphery areas, but the overall spice that you normally saw in the store is gone. And like you said, people mail order, people coming out of the valley with it, but it's like crack was in the 80s. It's a cheap pie.
$2. It's there. From it.
Appreciate you coming. We'll be following up with you. We're going to have a lot more issues that I'm sure you can help us
I'm
with.
available. You just give me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We have our next presenter from Beans Cafe. We have a number of folks now in this last half hour to tell us sort of their personal stories about addiction and homelessness. And the first one we have is Danny Garcia. Danny.
Well, again, my name is Daniel Garcia. I am 34 years old. I'm originally from Texas. I've been here in Alaska going on 8 years. I've been employed most of my life. I've had multiple addictions from alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, heroin. I cannot say with certainty that any one thing attributed to my use, but I found it easy to do because I was always employed. I became homeless in 2010 when my wife, who a lot of people say was just not paying attention, but became aware of my heroin use, and she kicked me out. Because she did have my children, it was just easier for me to leave. And I couch surfed for a little bit. I ended up on a friend's couch. This particular friend had a girlfriend that was getting really close. He was getting really close with, so I chose to leave. And for lack of a better place to stay, I went down to Brother Francis and got to know the people there. Got to know the people over at Beans across the parking lot. I was around for a few years before I kind of realized that, I was falling in line with the regular clients there. I was camping illegally. I was sitting around drinking and drugging all of the time. I spent a lot of my time trying to figure out where I was going to get the next drink or the next drug, rather than figuring out how I was going to get out of there. I get to meet their case managers over at Brother Francis, and one of their case managers just asked me point blank, how long do you think this is going to hold up? And I think she was maybe the spark that lit the fire in me to do something for myself and to get out of there and get back to the level where I was before I ended up homeless and started doing the things that they were doing. So I worked with my case manager at Brother Francis, and I first thing I did was make a plan to get a job, make a plan for permanent housing, make a plan to save my money. With her help, I was able to get a job at Beans Cafe, watching the clients and with my experience there those first 2 years, I kind of figured out that this isn't it for me. I can do more than this. And so yeah, I got in there for a while and I worked the program. And let me tell you, working the program is not easy. I had a job. Brother Francis has a schedule. There's certain times you can shower, there's certain times you can sleep, certain times you can be in the building, there's sometimes you have to be out of the building. So having a job, saving your 75% as part of the program, and not having time to go to an outside laundry or somewhere to sleep, because Beans Cafe doesn't allow you to sleep. It's against fire code. It was difficult. I think a lot of the clients there kind of go back into the cycle of being homeless and being outside and camping, because it is difficult. They get frustrated. They say, oh, well, why can't I do my work? Why can't I come in and get a shower before I have to go do my next job? But the program provides these services, and there are parameters to those services. I got through it all. I continued to work at Beans Cafe. I left for about a 2-year period. I did some fish processing and that sort of work. When my wife saw that I was cleaning up and I was making myself better again, she decided to give me another chance, and I came back to Anchorage. I came back to the Brother Francis shelter for a little bit, and came back to work for Beans Cafe. I've been doing that ever since. I've been there about a year now, the second time, and I recently got a better job, so now I'm only at Beans Cafe during the weekends. But things are getting better for me.
And you have a house?
I have a permanent place for myself, my kids. I can't say with any certainty that there was any services that I could have taken advantage of that would have helped my recovery. I think a lot of people realize that recovery starts with recognition of your faults and your addictions. In my case, it was just sitting around one night, and I had actually left the party to go next door to my apartment and get high, and I'm sitting there by myself, and I thought, you know, how selfish is this? You know, I'm actually leaving all my buddies out of the loop here. And at the same time, I thought, man, you know, that's a really twisted way of looking at it. And I thought, man, this isn't it. So I got a little, I went looking for a little help. I received it, and things are getting better for me. Any questions?
Congratulations.
There may be questions for Daniel and others. What I'd like to do, just to make sure everybody gets to talk, is have the folks from Homeward Bound tell their stories too, and then we can ask questions of any of them when we're done. So I don't know exactly who the individuals are, but I know there's a few folks here that might be willing to tell their story for us.
Hi, my name's Joanne, and I spent some time at Homeward Bound. I've been homeless and on the streets for a couple of years with mental illness and alcoholism. And winter's coming now, and I am grateful for a home, because right now I'd be winterizing the tent with whatever I could find to make it warmer. Homeward Bound had called my significant other, Patrick, up and asked if he would speak for Drugs Inc. So we were like in the last 5 minutes of heroin in Alaska, even though we're alcoholics. But after that, Colleen wanted to know if we would go to Homeward Bound, and we were ready. It's been an interesting trip because we were wild, we were feral, we didn't follow any rules. And we were going to have to fit into society again. And we were going to have to be accepted by society and accept society also. That meant tremendous change for us. We had to totally change our lives and sober up, and we had to face ourselves, which was hard because we did everything we could to not face ourselves, and we were even willing to face death just to not face ourselves or the problems we had caused in our lives. I have a lot of gratitude every day. I keep the apartment neat as a pin because I'm just grateful for running water, the toilet, sleeping with one blanket rather than 7 sleeping bags. I'm grateful that there isn't frost in our room when I wake up, or any dangers that I faced all the time, being homeless. It's really has paid off the gratitude that I feel in living again. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott Andrus, and 52 years old, and I was homeless for approximately 4 years previously to getting into Homeward Bound, and it changed my life. I heard a lot of good things here today, but I think the most important thing was the case management, the ongoing case management, because I know if people weren't patient with me, I never would have made it. When I first got into Homeward Bound, I had a hard time stopping drinking. I didn't want to go into Homeward Bound. People were trying to get me to go in there for like a year or two, and you couldn't drink there, so I didn't want to go there. And finally, one year with winter coming, I broke down and went in there, and I made my fair share of mistakes in there, and thank God nobody gave up on me in there. And eventually it led to transitioning into my own apartment, and life's just continuously improved. I've been in my place for 1.5 years now, and gone through they've helped me get into treatment, detox, everything I've needed help with, they've helped me with, and finding affordable housing. I mean, it was just impossible. I kept getting apartments, losing them because I couldn't afford them. You know, I could come up with a first and last, but then, you know, when rent would come, something would happen, lose your job. I always did construction and kept losing places. And yeah, they helped me get affordable housing, helped me deal with my addiction and alcoholism, and that's really all I have. But thank you.
My name is Tom. I've been homeless for about 4 years now. My family turned me down and everything. I turned to alcohol. I always been drinking, but I really got heavily into drinking when I moved back down here in Anchorage. As they were saying earlier, I was one of those 50% regulars that sleep off. I make sure I drink enough so I can get in, so I have a warm place to stay. I moved into Homeward Bound last December, and it was a struggle. It was hard, and but I hung on. Right now, I'm pretty successful. I'm getting ready to graduate, and as we speak, my employer called me. I work up the slope. My employer called me up a week and a half early. My R&R is kind of cut short. I just got the call. Yeah, I'm getting ready to. My life's been good. Seems like it's getting better. Kind of nervous talking. And it's good. If it wasn't for my case manager I'd probably be back out there. Hey.
Thank you to all the presenters. Are there questions for any of the folks that care to start?
I do. Joanne, I had a question for you. How long were you homeless for?
I was homeless for over 2 years, and I stayed in a tent.
And how long have you been in the Homeward Bound program?
I was there for about 6 months, 8 months, somewhere around there.
So I'm assuming, you know, within the population of people that you would see when they were homeless, do a lot of people recognize these programs are out there? I'm sure they do. And I would assume the hardest part of deciding to go into the program is Homeward Bound's obviously, you know, a clean program, right? So the hardest part is making that decision that day. Today's the day, I would assume.
I had tried to sober up on my own, and I wasn't very successful because going down to Beans and Brother Francis, everybody there was drunk. So staying sober and staying on the streets wasn't working. I knew that to sober up, I was going to have to get off the streets and away from that environment.
Well, thank you all for presenting your stories. They're very inspirational.
Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, Joanne, did you grow up here in Anchorage? Are you from Alaska originally?
I'm an Alaska native, but I spent a long time stateside.
So were you born in another part of Alaska?
I was born here in Anchorage. I was here until I was 16, and Kenai Central High was the last place I went to. Lived off and on in Louisiana and Phoenix. Spent 15 years in Massachusetts, and the whole time I was homesick. I finally made it back here in 2003.
And if I can, Tom, did you grow up here in Anchorage, or?
I was born in Port Yukon, Ontario, but I was raised in Fairbanks.
Okay. Well, and I'm just thinking out loud, so to speak, because someone actually told me this once a long time ago, and I just remembered it, that they had come to Anchorage from the rural Alaska because the cost of alcohol was lower here. And is that a reason why some people come here, or does anybody have news about that?
My birth mother pays $200 for a bottle of R&R, a fifth of R&R.
Thank you.
I just want to say, one of the things that Tom said, I hear this quite often at Beans Cafe about people at night, we close, and they're out there drinking so that they'll blow enough that they'll be able to go to sleep off, and they'll have a warm place to stay. I hear that many, many, many times.
Bad built-in incentive.
Exactly, yeah.
Sir?
One of the things, and I worked with the Homeward Bound program for years before I moved on to Carlet Manor and other programs, is that it's a difficult step, taking the step that they took to be sober. But what is even harder sometimes is then you finally make that step and you decide that you're going to be sober, and you decide that you want to get a job, you want to get a place to stay, and it's not available. Because most of these guys are very honest about where they've been and what they've done, and we also have affordable housing, so I know when they apply for housing, well, where have you lived before? I lived in my car, and I'm working on my alcoholism, and I've only been kicked out of 3 apartments in my whole life. And most landlords would think, you know what, I don't even want to deal with that. So it's very difficult then to find a place to live, find a job, especially if you have a history. You said you used drugs before. Put that on a job application and see how many people are actually willing to take you on. And so that's actually the next step. They not only got over the addiction and conquered that, now they have a whole bunch of new challenges there. Try to find a job, try to find a place to live. with that history? You know, and it makes it tough.
I applied at the Brown Jug a few years ago. I've been sober about 3 years, and I was talking to their HR person during the interview, and she asked me, have you ever had a drinking problem? And I told her openly, yes, I have. I've had a drinking problem, I've had a drug problem. I've been clean for quite a while, but I don't see that as a problem to my employment. I didn't get hired.
Mr. Chairman, I just thought of a question. One of the problems that we've been told is that people who have a drinking problem and have had already too much to drink and know that they can't go into a liquor store and get served or a bar, so they'll give some money to someone else to go in and buy for them.
Yeah.
Do you, some of you folks that were on the street, can you think of a solution to what would work to try to stop that?
Call the runner.
Yeah.
Call the runner. That's a hard one to stop.
Yeah,
People actually stay in front, outside of liquor stores and do that
For
to
extra
earn
money.
Exactly. There are
They
people
will
who don't
run for
drink.
you for $2, $5.
They're trusted because they
If you're
don't
drunk
drink.
enough, I've seen people there give an extra $20 just to go buy them a $10 bottle. Once they're
I've heard
drunk.
stories from cab drivers that will drive people to the valley because they're still selling liquor when we're not in Anchorage.
And
You know,
all the
cost them
runners
$200
are
bucks.
out today.
Take a cab.
Tomorrow's Social Security checks come in, today's your PFDs. So all the liquor stores have runners outside them right now because a couple hours after opening, they're too drunk to go back in and get their next bottle, so they need to use runners. Everyone knows, tomorrow's the big day, but you have PFDs today. Third of the month's a bad day out there. They all get their Social Security checks.
So do you think, we do have a red stripe law where people who have a history of alcoholism, that just, you don't think that works?
No.
Because
They get around it with the runners.
Runners are just too easily available? Thank you.
Mr. Bowski.
I have a question for the gentleman from Brown Jug. So we hear about these runners. It seemed to me that you have the same person or few people that keep going into the store to buying. Is that something that Brown Jug recognizes and tries to mitigate?
When we recognize them. And the other thing that we have is we have a standing policy, we won't serve any person regardless more than twice. So if somebody comes in once and, makes a purchase and then comes back later in the day, our policy is not to make the purchase.
Is
not to
it
make the sale.
more than twice in a 24-hour period?
More than twice.
Right.
To the degree that we know, we have shift changes and people aren't there. But we do recognize that's an issue. The degree that our employees are aware that goes, we set up cameras outside. What we find is the runners move right outside our camera range and they realize what we can and can't see.
I just want to thank all four of you for taking the time. I know it is nervous talking in front of a bunch of people. Appreciate it. I think it's very important. And I also thank Melinda Freeman for my guru for helping me find people to present at these meetings. It's important to, we get a lot of statistics about, how successful various programs are, and we can see that, this program 20% succeed or whatever. And it's easy to say that's not enough or whatever, but it's important to see that, the people that are behind that 20%, it's much more impactful. And I think it's, for what we're doing, it's important to understand that there are, real people behind those numbers, and that, so we're going to be seeing more, hopefully, folks like that, people who have succeeded, people who haven't succeeded, and try to find out why. For all the presenters, thank you. We have 5 minutes left in our allotted time. If there are any comments from anybody, we are going to be we have another meeting next month, and we're going to have a lot of information like this again, and we're going to be continuing to do this for several months until we feel we have at least a tenth of the information we should have.
I just wanted to make a comment that I really feel at Beans and with how much interaction I've had with clients, some who want to get sober, some who choose they don't want to get sober, they want to find housing, others who don't want to find housing, whatever. But it really comes down to personal connections, and it really comes down to understanding this population and understanding what severe trauma the majority of them, I would say especially at Beans, have gone through. And they're very distrusting. I mean, I hate to use us and them and they and blah, 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 but incredibly distrusting. So without that personal development, I think you were saying, you know, sometimes it's a 2-year process. Without that personal relationship, whatever we decide to do is not going to work. You know, and so whether that's we need more caseworkers or we need volunteers from the community who are willing. I mean, I've been at Beans for 8 months now. People in the community who are willing to go out and make a connection in some way, shape,
Almost
or form.
mentor him, just like
Exactly.
any other mentor situation.
Right, because it's just anything else, and this is just my humble opinion from talking to folks, and Daniel, if you disagree, tell me. Without that personal connection or a sense of caring, really, I mean, the problem won't get solved. It won't. And whatever policy, which you bring up about the red stripe or this, that, believe me, I mean, they are some of our clients are the most cunning, sneaky, intelligent people I have ever met in my whole entire life. I'm just like, I wish I could take that brain power and put it into something else. So it's any policy like that, I just don't, it would be throwing money at something that ultimately we wouldn't see an impact.
Drives up the price of the bond.
Exactly.
Slows them down.
Yeah, I was part of the Therapeutic Court. I'm still a part of the Therapeutic Court alumni. And I would really agree with the relationship. If there's no relationship with people that you have that you want to help, there's nothing that's really going to get done. So it takes time to build that relationship. So it's enjoyable to come in here because I've dealt with similar issues like this with myself and the people around me. And I think it's important for the people that have succeeded to reach out to other people and form that network. And it's more than just quote unquote a network, a business network. It's an understanding one another network and building common interests with one another. And I wanted to be sure I was here. I didn't check my email today till like 11, but I still got here. And I wanted to make that connection with this new group because, you know, I've lived in Anchorage all my life, and I've gone to the people mover meetings and all these things that I want to make this community a better community. And I think that we have it within ourselves to do that. It's just a matter of organization and actually taking that action and engaging others in this. So I just wanted to share that with everyone, and it's always encouraging to have people like yourself step up and wanting to share and move on to the next step and help others.
With that, it is now 1 o'clock and we are adjourned. Remember, our next meeting is the first Thursday of November. Oh, that's true. If anybody is interested in getting our email notices of this meeting, if you haven't gotten them already, if you contact Amanda there, she'll put you on the list, give her your email contact, and she'll make sure you get notified of our meetings. Thank you.